Welcome to the fourth of our fall semester's Berlage Keynotes, which is our ongoing series featuring internationally prominent architects and designers who are at the forefront of design discourse and innovation. We're pleased to have Harrison and Wood here tonight. John Wood and Paul Harrison make things that move and things that don't, things that are flat and things that are not, things that are mildly amusing and things that are definitely not. They make works that form a kind of reference manual for how to do, make, build, or draw things you probably never want to do, make, build, or draw. They do it for you, even though you don't need them to. This attempt to compile an encyclopedia of the everyday started in 1993 after they met in art college. Tonight's lecture is organized in conjunction with the design masterclass Harrison and Wood are leading over this fortnight, entitled "We Wrote a Master Plan on a Piece of Paper, but We Lost It." Twice a year, the Berlage students work with world-renowned designers in an intensive workshop setting to explore issues related to the built environment, experimenting with alternative formats of representation and dissemination. You may have seen some of them walking around like Oompa Loompas in navy blue workwear to complement this orange tribune. At any rate, next week, we will conclude the masterclass with a public event in this exact space at 4 o'clock, and you all are invited to join us. It's a pleasure to give this orange tribune to John and Paul. Thank you.
Really? Okay. There's not a lot of things worse than someone doing a lecture or a talk and just reading from a script. So that's how we thought we'd start. Thank you. The Bow Pub is still open. Our studio, like other buildings, is divided into different areas. We have the IT department, a 2008 iMac on a table, reprographics, the printer next to the iMac, dispatch, envelopes on a shelf with some string, and reception, the door. There is, of course, an art-making area, which is the largest and third most important area. There is, of course, the tea-making area, which is the smallest area and the second most important. The tea-making area is next to the most important area, the sitting down and talking area. We do sit down a lot, and we talk, and we drink a lot of tea too, whilst sitting down and talking. We've been sitting down and talking and drinking tea for nearly 30 years now, and that's a lot of chat and a lot of char. It's been one long conversation. What shall we do next, and how shall we do it? And that's the gist of it. One long conversation, but with lots of interruptions.
Hi. Thanks for coming, by the way. I'm Paul. Yeah,
Sorry, I'm
turn it
John.
on. Yeah, good. Am I starting?
Yes.
Okay. So, thanks for coming, as I said. We're just going to show and talk about our work for about 51 minutes. And then we're going to open up the floor for any questions that you have. So that piece of work that we just showed there was called Board. We made it in 1993, so about 30 years ago. We both had hair. We were both a lot more agile back then. And what it was, we met when we studied slightly different years, but we studied in the same college in Bath in England. We studied fine art, but we were in the painting department, but actually we both were doing lots of other things apart from painting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, good. So really that was our first piece of work that we made together, and it was as much as the students that we're working with at the moment that are sat in a really beautiful line, thank you again for that. It was about trying to decide what kind of work we were going to make, what kind of work we were not going to make. But also I think, looking back on that piece of work, it was about how we were going to work together, what kind of language we were going to, develop. And we've referred back to that first piece of work for the last 30 years. That's not to say that we've just had one idea and we've just reused that.
But I think it was very much about, one of the things that we were interested in was like what happens within the frame and what happens outside the frame. And this idea that when you film something or when you look at something, that it carries on either side of that and kind of has an existence outside of that. And so big influences on us were people like playwrights like Samuel Beckett and Tom Stoppard, and looking at kind of the rectangle. And then really that one, I would say, was two things. It was us, we'd left college, we'd left university, and it's kind of like, what do you do? And what do you do with your time? And also we were like really interested in, like, although we didn't kind of know it, we were really interested in what is your definition of performance art and what is your definition of dance and choreography. And so it was really us trying to understand, like, how do you move in a space and how do you move through a space?
And also really us just trying to avoid having to act in front of camera. So we wanted to perform, but we definitely needed something to do. So we weren't doing that kind of weird, uncomfortable kind of movement.
And because we were like, I think we were about like 24 or something when we made that, 23, 24. About 5 years ago, I think, we went to Vancouver and we worked with a load of like classically trained ballet dancers, and they were like proper, fit. And so I gave them like each a sheet of MDF, like 8 foot by 4 foot, and said, oh, can you just, try this? And they said to us, and we were quite impressed, they were like, we got like full on respect from the dancers because we could do it. Whereas now we can't. We tried to remake, next year is its 30th year, and we thought, let's try and remake that piece of work. So this year we got a piece of MDF in our studio, and I don't know whether I lied or you did, and we couldn't even pick it up. It was beyond embarrassing. So you forget things as well, that our films slightly become a document of like what you could do at a certain time, and like
Getting old.
Yeah,
That's pretty
now we've got
depressing.
to do it.
Okay, next piece of work called Device from 1996. So that was devised from 1996. It was a commission for BBC Two in England and shown as part of a series of commissioned video works. What we were trying to do with that was to cross the screen in 6 directions, so left, right, left, up, down, and the other ones that I'm not going to mention. We're just wary that what we're trying to do is condense 30 years of us into 30 minutes of footage and 30 minutes of chat, so we are going to speed up a little bit because we've got quite a lot to cover. But with that, and we've just written a little piece of text about the piece in that where John walks up the stairs with a kind of triangular shoes. And we talked about it, about kind of being able to do things you wouldn't normally be able to do with the addition of these kind of devices, and about it being sort of like being a superhero, but a really, really specific crap superhero that could just climb stairs of a certain angle, and that was all they could do. Okay, we're going to move on. So skipping 40 years to 1997, this is a piece of work called Three-Legged.
I think that tape again, was a bit like the one before, like really interested in kind of choreography and how you move within a space. And that one, it was about loads of decisions that are already made for you. So, you know, the tennis ball machine took a certain number of balls, so that dictated the length of the film, and it operated at a certain angle, so that dictated the size of the screen. So it was just kind of, again, looking at a different way of making decisions, but also had a link to like something that's all intrigues us, which is like sport. And, you know, like sport has generally different sports have a kind of rectangle or whatever court with markings, and there's a certain amount of time and people move in certain patterns through them. And that can be quite closely related to things like dance or buildings, or so it was that kind of thing with that we were interested in. But equally, most of the time we don't really know what we're doing. And with that one, we'd actually hired the machine for another video that we at some commission, and we made this other video, and it was okay, it was all right. And we had the tennis ball machine for a couple more days, so we were just trying things out, and we would switch the camera on, and we had to lie to the people that we got the machine from of what we were using it for. Because originally we wanted to put apples in it, but that wouldn't kind of work. And then that's why at the end of it, you see us, the two of us, slump down and start untying, you know, because we hadn't even worked an end out. We were literally just filming, and it broke. We have lots of rules and regulations when we're making films, and one of them is show no expression and no speaking and things like that. And that actually broke loads of our rules because there was genuine sort of panic and fear and because it really hurt. And any time that because we only filmed it about 5 times, I think, and any time that we filmed it, if ever we feel that we're getting better at something, then we purposefully mess that up. So every time we filmed it, we moved the machine like 3 meters nearer to us so that we could never get comfortable. The last thing I was going to say is that I'm really glad we finally got rid of those 4 or 5 people over there.
Yeah, that's true.
We thought we're just going to make them feel uncomfortable until they go.
Okay, 26, you can read. So super quickly, that is 26 drawing and falling things, so 26 sectioned work. People often ask about us as a duo, as about two people working together. And I think when we started out, what we imagined, because we would make these drawings with stick figures, and we imagined that we could just be these stick figures, so generic humans. But because, I don't know if you've noticed, there's a slight height difference in me and John. People feel, and John has a kind of open face. My eyes disappear, they're tiny. So when I'm on screen, they're like sort of like tiny dots. John's got this kind of like angelic, well, not so much anymore, but when he was younger, angelic, big eyes. People felt like kind of sorry for him because he's, as I said in Germany, pathetic looking. And then I become the evil one that does stuff to him. But John's kind of a better performer than I am. He's got a better on face, he's got a better posture. Though that's the compliment. And then the other thing, the other side of that is because John is smaller, we could build everything slightly smaller. So it was very cost effective. Okay. Next piece of work, 66.86 meters.
Hurrah.
Hurrah, you did it, it works. That was just an extract of that piece, and a few of the other clips we're showing from now on are just going to be extracts.
So that title, 66.86 meters, that's one long piece of cord or rope that we fed through a set of pulleys, and then we coloured in with marker pen to make this chair. And lots of our work is about the idea, well, there are various things that we love. We love tennis balls and we love chairs, amongst other things, that we kind of can't get out of our system. And chairs, we wanted, anytime you look at a chair, it's almost looking at the absence of a human figure. And with that one, a lot of our work as well is about how you draw, you draw in 2 dimensions and, the world is in 3 dimensions, and we were kind of like looking at how you translate between those 2 things. And also, mostly, it came from like, we sort of like to set ourselves challenges of if you film a person, generally, it's sort of watchable as a film, because as human beings, there's something, like we look at other people. We set ourselves a challenge of like, could we make a watchable video that didn't have a human being in it? And I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but that was
whether it's watchable. They're still here, but
they're still here.
It's only been give them time. Okay, one top tip: if you're going to title anything, give anything a title. Don't give it a numerical title, because people can never remember the numbers in the right order. So we have had that called everything under the sun, haven't we? Okay, the next one coming up is what was originally shot as a 6-screen, 6-monitor piece, but we've compiled it onto a single-screen version for events like this. Okay, so that was called 100-weight. The reason it was called 100-weight, is because we don't know how true this is, but we found out somewhere that the weight of air in an average room weighs about 100 weight. So that's how we got it. And I think that probably explains that work, together with the work that's coming up next, is why we were invited to come and work with this bunch of people. We're going to skip on now to, what year was two? Yeah. To 2005, and it's an extract, isn't it? An extract from a piece of work called The Only Other Point.
Um, we sort of told our group that we're working with a little bit about that. But it's funny when you make, like all of our films, there is no, computer generated imagery, or there's no kind of effects or anything like that. Everything, pretty much everything that you see is fishing line, gaffer tape, and, whatever. And we love that kind of thing because you can't quite control the physical, or like in that one there with the table tennis table, I think we tried it with table tennis balls because you would think, okay, we'll use table tennis balls. But we had to use golf balls because the table tennis balls didn't have the weight. So there's that kind of nice idea, that you can't control the physical world. But equally, you get people telling you stuff about things that you've made. And I'm sorry to the group, but we had like someone very high up in the kind of UK art world say to us with that film, you must have like a really long studio. We were like, really? Or the best one is when you get people that tell you how you made stuff, and they say you use CGI. You go, no, we didn't. They said, yes, you did. And you're like, well, we were there, you weren't, so fuck off. But is there anything else to say about Toop? Yeah.
Again, you can read, but this piece, 1 more kilometre. Okay, so to explain the title, maybe you'd have guessed, but the paper, the A4 paper laid end to end would have made 1 kilometre. That's how we made the decision about the height of the pile. And one more is because we don't often remake works. We might shoot loads and loads of different takes and shoot takes over a couple of months. But usually once we've decided on it, we think, yeah, that's okay. But with this one, we did shoot it where we shot it from a different angle, and we became interested. We were more interested in the dispersal of the paper. But actually, a couple of years later, looking at it again, and looking at the kind of rough test shoots that we did, because we just started it by just playing around in the studio and seeing what would happen with this belt sander and this stack of paper. We actually found that the most interesting thing for us was the drawing of the paper made when it left the pile. And just a gallery that we worked with in New York put that on their Insta feed, a little clip, and we got an absolute torrent of abuse about wasting paper. But there you go. Okay, next one is a version of a work called 10 by 10.
So we did that. One of our friends made, the camera is mounted on a ladder, as Kelly would call it, aluminum. Is that right? Aluminum.
I think that's right. I think that's how you say it.
Ladder. With a motor, and the camera kind of, so again, it's super lo-fi, and we just cut as the camera went past.
I think you'll notice how it said the work is called 10 by 10, but the title was 26 rooms. Hi. For us, I think with that work, we actually built this set and we filmed 2 full kind of 30-minute long works. One that was quite Spider-Man doing the stuff and all that kind of stuff, and then another one which was very much like the tone was very altered, it was very knocked down, it's quite grey, very repetitive. And I think for us what's interesting is the works don't become fixed once we've made them. You know, we're looking and interested in showing them in different ways, recombining them. So for that we have a work called 10 by 10, one called Tall Buildings. We've also made that version. We made another version which we showed in Times Square in January, was it this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, January this year. And we also made a pop video for someone you're not old enough to remember.
But it was interesting with, like, as soon as you do things in public, things like, for various reasons, either of people thinking things are offensive or copyright, we weren't allowed, in that one there, we weren't allowed to show Spider-Man in New York, copyright or something, and they wouldn't let us show the clip that you saw there where Paul was sat on the chair with his feet, where he was tied to the chair. I mean, yeah. I don't know what...
Hostage situation in New York.
Hostage situation in New York has kind of gone down, maybe tied to an office chair. So or equally, with our stuff that we think is like really non-offensive, and also like we sort of take pride, I think, in making work that is accessible to people. Not that we don't consciously go out to do that, but we make the work that we think we would like to see, you know, in a gallery or whatever. But you can never ever predict, no matter how simple and how stripped down we make our work, you can't kind of control. So, for instance, I did a talk in Swansea in Wales a few years ago. Did a talk like this. You know, it seemed to go perfectly all right. And there was a woman, an old woman in the front row, who sat and nodded and smiled throughout the talk. And I was thinking, oh, great, you know, she likes it. And then at the end, we did a kind of, you know, has anyone got any questions? And she went absolutely mental at me, thinking that this was the most offensive thing that she'd ever seen in her life. So
you'll get the opportunity in a few minutes to vent that similar frustration. Okay, we definitely. We switch from quite complicated works, which involve a lot of building and a lot of editing and stuff, to really quite simple works. It just keeps things kind of fresh in our heads and keeps things interesting. This is a really simple. It's a stupid piece of work, I think it really is. But here we go. It's an extract. Okay, we're just going to let the last 2 pieces of work, Kundo, which is coming up now, and 101 Reasons to Stand Somewhere, just play out, and then we'll take questions.
we're not going to show that. The reason that is called Erdkunde is we made, in 1997, we worked in what was the old East Germany, and in this village in like the middle of nowhere, like totally rural, but bizarrely there was like an experimental film place there, and we would walk to the sort of where we were filming every day, and there was like a local drunk man who would just shout at us because we were overtly not like from the village. So he would sort of heckle us every day, and we didn't really know what was going on. And we'd get back to the centre, and we'd say to the staff that we work with, like, there's a man who sort of shouts at us every day. And they were like, oh, that's Erdkunde. And we were like, what do you mean? And they said, oh, we call him Erdkunde. He's like a drunk, and he gets drunk all day, and then he falls over and just like, you know, he's got his face in the ground. And Erdkunde in Germany, I think, is like the study of the earth. And they say that's what they called him, that he was like just studying the earth, but from like this close up. And we thought that was just a really nice, that's sort of what we do. We think it's like looking at things and just trying to work them out and understand them. So he's probably dead now, but like Erdkunde.
Thank you, Erdkunde. Obviously, we're involved with time quite a lot. We like to kind of hit marks, and it is now 1 hour since we started. So we're gonna end and open for questions. But I think what we're gonna do, just to speed it up, if anyone has got any questions, I'm gonna do the mic running thing. So if anyone has got a question, stick your hand up. I'll come. We do.
But we're totally happy to have awkward.
You've got
15
okay.
minutes.
We'll work up.
Okay. I have hey John and Paul. Hello. I have a question about
the film Easy Rider.
yeah. I try not so fast, and I'm wondering, you have many video about the momentum and the movement.
Sorry.
yeah, like this. It actually relate to my question. It's how do you conceive your video? I mean, it start from a single point, or it all relate to the movement and continuously in a loop, or just like this, you can see, you conceive this picture in the specific composition, and it went out. I don't know.
How do we conceive it? I think it's a variety of things. Sometimes it's like we have a specific drawing in our head and of thinking about the idea of an action. Or sometimes it was, I mean, particularly early on when we began to work together, when you have lots of time and no one knows who you are and you have no, you know, we would just turn the camera on, and for days and days we would just like mess around. And film things that we thought were funny, or that we thought we were interested in, or sometimes that we thought were beautiful, but we could never tell what people, like, we're the worst judges. So we would make something that we thought was funny, and other people would think it was really not funny, or we would try and make something that we thought was like really serious, and other people didn't think it was serious.
I think the difficult thing is, because we've been working for 30 years, you grow, you change, you grow, you become interested in different things, and you become less interested in things you used to be interested in. So the kind of work changes, but also kind of where you get the ideas from and how you develop. So I think it does like massively vary.
Yeah, and depending on what we're sort of interested in at the time, or
yeah.
the thing, or stuff with that early work, maybe. We felt maybe we were having to prove a point about something, but then like 5 years later, that's not, you know, relevant in terms of like us, but the work still. That's a terrible answer. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. It's a terrible answer. Should we move on to the
talking shit up the front now?
Should we try and? I don't want to be offensive.
Does that sort of answer it, Nyen? A bit. Was that some kind of answer? No.
Uh, uh, Maybe I'm not very specific. My question is that I saw some your videos, and in some point it become kind of a very strict composition, and I just wondering, yeah, is there any possible you have some accident like your ball falling not in your way of thinking, or it's out of control and it's not what you want at the end, the composition. But I see these videos, they all end with very beautiful composition. In some part, I think it's like a great ratio or great scale.
Yeah, I mean, part of the answer to that is that for any one of those things that we might film like 70 takes. So it's like just really beyond boring. And then when we're kind of watch back, and then we're looking for the very little differences between something of the thing. So in the one where Paul is holding the piece of paper against a wall, and it falls down the wall, that piece of paper fell in like 37 different ways. And then we're just looking for, and to decide on the one that, and it isn't necessarily that we're looking for like perfection. We like the little quirks in strange, but if you film enough of them, then you have the choice of which way. And sometimes we're trying to control the image to make this beautiful image, and sometimes we like it when it kind of doesn't do what we want it to do. Yeah.
You look tiny. You look.
My dance moves.
Miniature.
I'm going to do my dance moves now.
Yeah. I don't know. Is the person that designed this auditorium here?
I hope not.
No. Okay. We got another question.
Sorry. Thanks. I guess I was just interested in your personal as well as your professional relationship to humor, suspense, and discomfort within your work, because I think those are all. I'm kind of interested about what you take seriously within the work and what you kind of have fun with and think is a joke or worth experimenting or want people to laugh at and get joy from.
It's a really good question. We were just talking about earlier on when we were on our way here. So I'm just, sorry, I know this is really awkward, but this is just such an awkward space to deal with.
You should never.
We were talking on our way over about the fact that we don't take anything seriously, but at the same time we do take things incredibly seriously. So our temptation in an environment like this is, because it's awkward for us, it's awkward for you, is to kind of muck about a bit. So in the hope, the battery's gone, in the hope that, because this is it's a really interesting.
It's a really interesting space.
Thanks. Can you just guess about that? Is anyone familiar with the English comedian Norman Collier? No, they're not.
No.
I'm gonna.
We with humour. I mean, when we first made our first tape board that you saw, and we made another one called Crossover, which is where we were sort of moving around and over a table. We genuinely thought like they were contemporary dance, really serious. Not that we were serious, but we were just like, didn't see anything remotely funny about them. We were like, this is how you cross a table and this is how you move a space. And I don't know where we were, somewhere, and we showed the work, and like people started laughing, and we were slightly confused because we were thinking, no, this is proper serious. Shut up. And then, but the flip happens as well, where we think, because it's a whole combination of stuff, like sometimes we're wanting to make things that, because in the studio it just made us laugh and we think it's interesting. Or sometimes we're thinking, like, this is really beautiful. Like the paper one with the belt sander, we just thought was really beautiful. But you can show things in different contexts, i.e. different kind of gallery or a film screening or television. And you can show things in different countries. And we just can't remotely predict, like, so one that we thought was really funny, we were doing a screening in Montreal in 1998, and with the audience it was a bit of a tough gig, because normally we don't do things like this. We always build installations in galleries. We don't really like doing screenings where you're telling the audience to watch it in this order, and but you're there and you've got to do it. And the films, we were showing films and it was just going to silence. We were thinking, oh Christ, this is bad. And then like we got to a certain tape and we thought, okay, this will like break the ice and this will make the audience laugh. And that one played and there was just a kind of, and then at the end we were like, oh Christ. And we come off and people were saying to us, I'm not going to do my Canadian accent. People were saying...
Is there anyone in the audience that could help us with that?
They were saying, that work there, that was really dark. That was really disturbing. And we were thinking, that was our funniest one. I don't know. So you can't...
I mean, we're interested in a lot of different responses and that kind of thing that happens when you see someone fall over. You laugh first and then you go ouch, or you go ouch and then you laugh. And we're kind of interested in the in the kind of way that works. We've written a little text in response to an interview. I don't know the magazine, but it's called Nook, N-O-O-K. Is it Architecture magazine? I think it is. Yeah. Okay. That'll be out soon. We wrote a lot about kind of humour and response and all that kind of stuff, but they just emailed us the other day to just say, yeah, our responses were too long, so it's been edited. So it might just be like 5 words. I've got no idea. Anyway, another question? Oh, Jesus Christ. Right, okay.
Nikos.
How small are you going to look, John, when I'm up here?
Especially like in the Netherlands.
Hello.
Hello, Nikos.
Thank you for the keynote and thank you for the master classes, even though you lost the master plan. I would like to ask a question about the relationship you're trying to build with the viewer. How important is the fourth wall in your films?
All right, Nikos. Yeah. Trying to throw us. Sorry, you shouldn't ever give us microphones. It's like it's a nightmare. How is important is the fourth wall? Well, I think we operate between, often we start from a drawing and then we make it in our studio as a 3-dimensional event, or 4-dimensional in that we film it and it's live, and going back onto the screen it becomes a 2-dimensional, and then it becomes a 3-dimensional when we then present it as, mostly we show stuff as multi-screen sort of installation work where we build rooms and structures, and so mostly what we're wanting to happen is and which is why we don't generally release our work on this thing called the internet, and why we don't do screenings like this, is because what we want is the viewer to have like a physical relation to the work, so that when you stand and watch the work, either it's the same size as you or it's small, or the audio of it, so that there's a direct physical relationship between the viewer and also the architecture that we build. Like often if we're doing an exhibition, we build the whole show so it kind of looks like our, the sets in our films, just these white walls and kind of minimalist. And so for us, I don't know if that's the fourth wall, but the thing that we really want is that kind of connection between the viewer and the physical, and this final thing, and so that the viewer has a physical response to the work, or becomes more aware of themselves while they're standing. So we're very particular, like whether we have seating or not seating for certain pieces of work, so that you become aware of yourself in relation to the screen and the thing that's happening.
I think as well, we still can't resist seeing them as drawings, even though we're dealing with time and we're using video cameras and editing and like that kind of stuff. I think we still see it. We don't really see it as television. We don't really see it as cinema. So I guess we want it to be seen in a slightly different...
Almost like I mean, a lot of the time we think we're like documentary filmmakers, but no one else does.
Is this deliberate, getting me right from the...
Well, no, my question would be is, how do you see your work placed within the history of painting. So I would actually argue that it is not video work. It's definitely not cinematic. It's not about, breaking the fourth wall. It's basically, you could start to read it. Trained as painters, for me, it is painting. So, the first question about composition, I would argue it's an evolution of painting, and I would just wonder if there is a consciousness to that or a thinking within that, and maybe if you could have a kind of concluding reflection on that.
You're just telling us to shut up, aren't you, Solomon?
Is that what you mean?
No.
Can
you conclude
No,
it, please?
No, if people have more questions, great,
But
maybe like orders, so I was thinking
okay.
you would rush it to 45 after the hour, but I don't know.
No. Well,
I think in painting, I always thought of myself as a painter, and you probably thought of yourself as a sculptor, maybe.
yeah, and I think we kind of combined in those two ways.
And then we thought about things, there's no use to this whatsoever in the world, but like wondering where one has come from. And my dad was a civil engineer, and Paul's dad was an architect, a draftsman. And you kind of try and work out like why you've ended up what you're doing, or why you're I don't know why I'm drawn more to painting and you're drawn more to 3.
I think you're right in a way, because when we first started out in the late 80s, very early 90s using video, we were told we weren't video enough, because especially in the 80s there was a lot of kind of like effects driven, kind of super crazy, that kind of stuff, which we hated. And I think that we weren't using it, we were just using it as a recording device for these images that we were making. And in some ways for us, the work, and it still is, the work is always in the studio, and the video, when we're making the video works, it's just a way of delivering the work to the outside world in a really easy and convenient way to do it. And I know, obviously, is when we started to work with the medium, we kind of tried to explore that as well. But I think you're right, at its basis, at its root, it's very simple composition, color, very limited palette, very precise. And that's how we started, and then we just kind of mess with those things as we go along.
I think we were partly trying to make diagrams of the world, and kind of catalogue the world, and which is why we said this before, is like, and no one else is going to be happy about this, but like really what we see is that our work, it's not like individual pieces. We're just trying to get as much of it done as we can before we die, so that there's a kind of, like, this is our version of the Encyclopedia Britannica.
As we've been subtly told to shut up, we're going to wrap up. I'm joking. But, because we're like granddads on social media, so if you want to check us out on... And by the way, London in the house?
Oh yeah, come on, where's London?
Oh, Bartlett's. Go.
They think we've brought our own audience.
There's going to be a fight later, you lot versus the Berlage.
Dutch.
Yeah. So
We could
take it outside.
We could just show, like, as I accidentally hit a little bit of it, we'll just show a tiny bit of this to end with, on a positive note. Like, how much, well, in order to do stuff that looks like very, straight face and simple, it kind of often takes, takes us a long time, or involves, a lot of violence.
We're just taking the sound down so we can just... Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So imagine the sound, and we're just going to... yeah, it's just taking it down. There we go. That's brilliant. You can do it yourself. I was just going to say that if there are any other questions, because we are going to end it now, feel free to follow us on Instagram at Wood and Harrison and DM us any questions, and we'll get back to you. Or email us through the website. I should work on TV. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Ooh. Blub, 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 blub. We did show this on Channel 4 in England once, and they overdubbed blub, 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 noises. Shocking. Terrible. If we don't, yeah, we'll end and we will bow out now.
It needs sound.
Thanks very much for coming. Thanks for the invitation. Have a good night.